A big yikes for B-list celebrity Ray J, who has publicly outed some of his high-profile friends, saying they're paying off victims of P. Diddy's freak-offs. These public statements are actually kind of problematic for these celebs because if they are in fact true, they're also illegal. It's just another twist and turn in the sordid case of P. Diddy and his celebrity friends whose identities have yet to be revealed. But could they be soon? We're taking a look into that and all things Diddy with criminal defense attorney Mauricio Padilla. I'm Sarah Gillespie, and this is Law&Crime News. Almost 2 months since P. Diddy's federal indictment, and we're still learning more details about his years of alleged sex trafficking. The newest information is actually coming from one of Diddy's longtime friends, Ray J. His real name is William Norwood Jr. You may know him as the brother of the singer Brandy, or more likely, the guy who made a sex tape with Kim Kardashian. Ray J is now back in the headlines after appearing in TMZ's latest documentary, The Downfall of Diddy, Inside the Freak-Offs. During an interview for the doc, he said, quote, "I'm hearing about artists paying victims to keep their names out of it." He's basically saying some celebrities out there were involved in Diddy's freak-offs and they're trying to pay off survivors. This part isn't entirely new information. We always knew Diddy had a lot of celebrities in his sphere, from the white parties with Leo DiCaprio and Ashton Kutcher to his past relationships with singers Jennifer Lopez or Cassie. But in more recent weeks, we've learned that some celebrities were also involved in these illegal freak-offs, and in at least one case with an underage victim. All this info came forth from Houston-based attorney Tony Busby. After Diddy's indictment, he revealed literally thousands of people came to him alleging abuse at the hands of Diddy. But these survivors mentioned other people too, some A-list stars that Busby says could be mentioned in future civil lawsuits. I talked to Busby just one day after he announced the suits and asked him about these celebrity names. These names that will be included, the ones that you are willing to include in these suits, why will they surprise us so much? Is it because they're beloved people in the Hollywood universe?
I've gotten this question so many times, and I know, and you're doing your job. Obviously, you want to know who they are, some kind of facts, so you can kind of figure out who they are. I think I'll just leave it at this. I mean, you know, it was a secret that everyone knew about what was going on with regard to these parties and some of the things that happened in these so-called after parties. There was a pattern in practice, custom of behavior that went on for many, many years. The MO of how it went down was pretty much the same for many, many years. It typically included, people identified and specifically invited to certain venues and parties. And when they showed up, they were given a specific drink. They were made to drink it. If they didn't drink it, they would many times be kicked out of the party. And a lot of these folks would drink this drink that was provided to them and literally could not remember hardly anything that happened thereafter. And the next morning woke up disheveled, injured, confused, scared, ashamed, full of guilt, and wondering what in heck happened to them. Some of them, of course, have clear memory about what happened, but literally could not stop it from happening. It's incredibly egregious, especially with regard to those that were minors at the time this happened. And it's my view that if you were around and you were there and you were watching this and in some way participating in this, you're complicit. It's one thing to obviously anybody that was directly participating in this, in my view, should be under the jail. But that's not my decision to make. That's the authorities. My job is to find and ferret out all the people involved, facilitated, benefited from, profited from, and make sure that they are parties in these cases as we file them. And there is a long list of people. I've said, and I'll say it again, I have no doubt that there are people right now who know that they were somehow involved in this, who are now scrubbing their social media, who are searching their memories, who are deleting their texts, probably deleting pictures and trying to distance themselves from this. And we know who they are, or we will find out who they are. So, this is not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think we're at the tip of the iceberg here.
Are you out and about running errands while you're watching our video? Okay, listen up if you're getting groceries or gas. I have to tell you about this new app, Upside, that gets you cash back on daily essentials. I now use it every time I pump gas because it's so easy and it's free. Here's what you need to know. Download the Upside app and claim an offer for whatever you're buying. Pay as usual and then simply follow the steps on the app to get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, or scan the QR code on the screen and use our promo code LCNews to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Busby sent demand letters to these celebs, and he says some have already settled outside of court. But that leads us back to Ray J. His allegations sound a bit more like hush money. He said, quote, "Here's what I do know. People do catch and kills all day. For the regular world, somebody has a truth, somebody pays you to keep it quiet, and hopefully that money you got paid secures your happiness while you watch the lie continue to succeed." Basically, quote, "I'll give you money, please don't talk." Ray J didn't mention anyone by name, but said these high-profile people reached out to him because of his friendship with P. Diddy, fearing that their names would be attached to his alleged illegal activity. Most of that revolves around something Diddy called freak-offs. Defined by federal prosecutors, they're elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. Along with these freak-offs apparently came a chilling pattern. Diddy or his team would drug someone, sexually assault them, and then sometimes even record it. These recordings proved to be Diddy's downfall, though, because federal prosecutors now say they've got this alleged illegal activity on camera. That led to Diddy's federal indictment on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Only one victim is referenced in the federal indictment against Diddy, but a slew of civil suits from more than a dozen victims tell a different story. If we're going off what Tony Busby says, there are actually thousands of people who say they've been victimized by Diddy. But he's not the only alleged perp. This is where those high-profile celebrities come in. For example, in one of the most recent lawsuits filed against Diddy, a survivor says she was assaulted by him when she was just 13. It happened in September of 2000 when she met one of Diddy's drivers at the MTV Video Music Awards. The driver told her she fit what Diddy was looking for. She was then invited to an after party where she was forced to sign an NDA before being allowed inside. When she finally entered, she says there were multiple celebrities that she recognized. We're now getting reports that some of these celebrities were the likes of Eminem, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and even the magician David Blaine. She also says there was illegal activity out in the open, like underage people drinking and drug use. She actually accepted a drink herself that tasted a bit off. She now believes Diddy or one of his associates slipped something into that drink. After that, she started to feel woozy after having a bit of the drink, so she went into a room that she thought was empty, but she didn't lock the door. What happened next is directly from her lawsuit and pretty disturbing, quote, "Soon after, Combs, along with a male and female celebrity, entered the room. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff, that's the survivor in this case, with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her, and said, 'You are ready to party.' She recalls Diddy threw her toward a male celebrity listed only as Celebrity A, who took off her clothes. After that, she says Celebrity A raped her, while Diddy and a female celebrity, referred to as Celebrity B, watched along. Later, Diddy tried to force her to perform oral sex on him, but she resisted and hit him in the neck. At that point, he then stopped. Now, there are rumblings that Celebrity B in this scenario may have been Jennifer Lopez, who was dating Diddy at the time. That has not been verified, and J-Lo hasn't even made any comments about it either. We're still unclear who Celebrity A is as well, but he could be someone who spoke with Ray J. About revealing some sensitive information regarding his celebrity friends, Ray J said, quote, "I don't even know why I said it, but I said it. So what? Now they're gonna be mad. I've said too much." So here to help us understand all of this is criminal defense attorney Mauricio Padilla. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what we're talking about today, P. Diddy, some celebrities who may have been involved in his alleged illegal activity. And to me, this just sounds like these celebs are trying to head it off at the pass, stop before any of these victims or survivors mention their names in lawsuits. What do you make of it?
Well, I heard what Ray J was talking about, and I watched a portion of the documentary where he's talking with TMZ, and he's saying that they've reached out to him. As far as I'm concerned, I think Ray J just cannonballed into the investigation, because what he's saying is that he has knowledge of persons attempting to obstruct justice in this investigation. If you're reaching out to victims, whether you were involved with Diddy or whatnot, and you're offering money for them to keep quiet, that's a federal crime. He's just admitted that he knows about it. So I don't see a scenario where they're not going to call him in and say, okay, who exactly did you hear this from? When did you hear it from us? And tell us right now, because as far as I know, he doesn't have any privilege. He's admitting that he has factual knowledge of people committing crimes. So when I watched it, I really think that he maybe made a mistake and that he's trying to, jump in and trying to get his face seen and trying to become part of this story. But I think it just became part of the criminal investigation.
You're right, because I do feel like he's trying to get involved. I mean, I haven't heard the name Ray J in quite some time. So, I mean, it did get me thinking about him again when I saw this headline that he was speaking. But then to your point, he also eventually says, I think I've said too much. I got to stop talking. So he says what he says and then kind of backtracks, knowing that he might have spilled the beans a bit too much. So to your point, what's next then? These federal investigators are going to reach out to Ray J and say, okay, well, who's talking to you?
Yeah, they could reach out to him informally. They could reach out to his lawyer if he has one. They could subpoena him to come talk in front of a grand jury and ask him all these questions about what did you hear? Who did you hear it from? Another problem with Ray J is a known good friend of P. Diddy. There's multiple videos of them two partying. There's one where Diddy's talking about being outside or inside. He's obviously super intoxicated. Ray J's present. And so now the issue is Ray J says he's never seen a freak off. He didn't even know this occurred. And if we know anything about Ray J, we know of his past with Kim Kardashian. We know that he may be a freak himself. So for Ray J to be friends with P. Diddy and say that he's never been to a freak off or didn't even know that freak offs occurred, some people might question that as well. So I think maybe he should have maybe opted out of talking in this particular instance.
I think you're right. I mean, he could be saying, I've never seen a freak off. I haven't been involved, to kind of save face for his image. But I mean, if he is eventually put on the stand, it would be perjury if he lies and then prosecutors come forward and say, well, we actually have this video of you, Ray J, at this freak off. So do you think he may change his tune and reveal more about he could potentially have been involved or the people who he knows were involved?
I see it a lot in my practice. People underestimate the tentacles of a federal investigation. People don't understand that this is the government, and when they set their sights on somebody nowadays with forensic evidence, text messages that are there forever, they're gonna look, and I think he's gonna have a situation on his hands when they start investigating him. Listen, I don't know what happened, and I don't know whether he knew or not. But considering the type of person that historically he's been, and the type of relationship that he's admitted he had with Diddy, I think that they're gonna look. And when I say they're gonna look, and the FBI is looking, they look for real.
You're right. He does have a strong history with Diddy, this friendship. So it seems to me that he would probably have some sort of loyalty to P. Diddy after a decades-long friendship. But now when things are getting really heated, we have the feds involved, the prosecutors, it could be a lot going on. Do you think it's possible Ray J could even flip and testify rather than for the defense, but for the prosecution?
I mean, listen, that's always a possibility. And really, if he was friends with Diddy, what he's doing now is not helping at all. What he did in that documentary and talking about that he knows people that are paying and people are reaching out to him because he's a vessel, and he is not helping. I think his desire to get FaceTime, to Diddy's detriment is obvious. And I think now he's maybe bit off a little bit more than he can chew when they come knocking, which I don't see a scenario where they're not going to. This is an ongoing investigation. This is a huge case. I mean, it's all over the media. The case keeps growing. Every day, there's a new news article. This is not the type of case where, with time, the amount of media exposure lessens. On the contrary, we keep hearing more. The story keeps getting bigger. And now Ray J, for whatever reason, has cannonballed into the case, into the investigation, and possibly to his detriment.
Okay, I do have to wonder about Ray J's allegations that these celebrities are coming to him and kind of revealing this information. We know, at least according to the attorney who's filing some of these civil lawsuits, that the people who are involved, these alleged celebrities who may have committed the same crimes as Diddy, they're high profile names. They're people we would know, maybe even more famous than P. Diddy. So if that really is true, these high profile names, why would they then be going to Ray J? I mean, shouldn't they be talking to their own attorneys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people would assume that if they're reaching out to you, maybe it's because you're as dirty as them, and they're figuring, I'm going to reach out to Ray J. Why? Because Ray J was at the freak offs. Well, I'm going to reach out to Ray J. Ray J knows P Diddy. Ray J knows what's up. Like, why are you confiding in this guy that was admittedly a friend of Diddy, unless you think that he has knowledge, he's going to stay quiet because he has the same, guilt-ridden evidence that you may have. So I don't understand it. Like, it really makes no sense on if someone's out there trying to pay witnesses to keep quiet during a federal investigation, committing a federal offense, because there's no way else to say it, committing a federal offense, and then reaching out to Ray J because they just want to open up and talk to him. It doesn't really make sense.
Now, we do know the attorney who's bringing a lot of these civil lawsuits is Tony Busby out of Texas. And he says he's released some demand letters, or sent them rather, to some of these celebrities, kind of giving them an ultimatum. Hey, we're going to file this suit if you don't settle ahead of time with the client. I guess, what do you make of all of that?
Well, listen, that's different. That's completely legal. And you really need to have some type of basis ethically as a lawyer to go out there and send these demand letters. The basis could be just the testimonial evidence of your client. You get somebody that says, I was here with Diddy and so, and then you could, that could be enough of a basis if you believe the person as an attorney to send the person a demand letter. Usually in a case like this, I would expect that he has a little bit more if he's sending demand letters. But yeah, I mean, listen, that's different because he's a lawyer and he's actually representing a client. So but I do believe that he would have to have something a little bit more than just the testimonial evidence of his client to be sending these demand letters.
What do you mean something more? I mean, the testimony you mentioned of the client, but potentially like a photo of them together or video, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it depends. It depends who's the lawyer. I guess what state you're in, the rules of ethics in the state bar that you're part of. But you could come under attack for sending a demand letter. People could say that, if you don't have a reasonable basis, you're basically trying to extort a high-profile name. So the lawyer himself, to protect himself, can say, okay, well, I have the testimonial evidence of my client, meaning he says that so and so was involved. But usually lawyers want to protect themselves from the attack of you're extorting a high profile name, and would ask for something more. It could be text messages, videos, photographs, airline tickets, things of that nature, so that to defend yourself when someone says, oh, you're just trying to attack me because I'm a high profile name.
If that is the case, and they do have this extra information, whether it be texts, calls, photos, whatever it is, let's say that they do have that. Send the demand letters to these unnamed celebrities, and the celebs say, okay, yes, I do want to settle with you so that my name is not mentioned in a lawsuit. If that is the case and that happens, is it possible that we, the public, never even hear who these celebrities are?
That's a possibility. But if you remember historically, Diddy did not settle the lawsuit with his ex-girlfriend, Kasi. So he didn't. They filed it. He settled it a day later, but all of a sudden it became public record, and then that got the ball and the momentum rolling regarding the federal investigation. So people out there want to nip it at the bud, right? Pre-suit, and that's a legal thing that you could do. Now, whether or not what the lawyers' demand letters are privy to the federal government, I can't think right now whether or not there's a privilege attached. But the federal government could try and inquire from this attorney, who did you send demand letters to? Because one thing is if you sign a non-disclosure agreement, that's saying that you're not going to go out and do an interview like I'm doing right now. But if the federal government is knocking and asking questions, that's not part of an NDA. You can't use a non-disclosure agreement to tell the FBI, I'm not going to talk to you. So I believe that if you're a celebrity and you had something to do with it and they reach out to you and they send a demand letter, you're gonna want to resolve it, because you're not gonna want to happen what happened to Diddy when he settled it a day into the lawsuit, but it was too late because it hit the media.
That point that you just made about P. Diddy settling Cassie's lawsuit one day later, it's been a year since she filed. I still cannot wrap my brain around it. If he had just settled, we might not know all of this information. So it's kind of curious to me. And you're right, maybe these celebrities would then say, okay, maybe I should settle ahead of time. But I did speak to this attorney, Tony Busby, the one who's bringing a lot of these lawsuits. And he said, I've actually encouraged my clients to speak with the feds if they want to and they're comfortable with it, bringing forth the information they brought to me to federal investigators. So if that's the case and they do decide and they have this wealth of information, then do you think the feds would pursue charges against maybe some of these other celebrities?
It's always a possibility. Listen, from the beginning, I always said that Diddy is not the top of the food chain, okay? What do the feds like more than Diddy? Well, they like the richer people than him, the more powerful people, the people in Hollywood, the people that he was trying to impress, the people that he would fill up his plane and take prostitutes, male and female, to different locations to impress maybe, I don't know, owners of record labels and high power people. They want those people. They want politicians. If you're a politician and you were friends with Diddy, they're going to want to find that out because that's what they want. So I disagreed with certain people that had me on their show regarding whether or not Diddy was the top of the food chain. I still think that he's not. And I still think that the feds are going to do everything in their power to find out where Diddy leads them to when it comes to politicians, higher profile people than him, other celebrities. And I think that when it comes to politicians, Diddy was very active with the Democratic Party, and that motivates investigations one way or the other. You know, like politics motivates investigations. So I think we may be seeing some of that as well.
That will definitely be interesting to see play out what happens, whether these people would maybe be called to testify, face charges of their own. And again, we still don't know their names yet. But my next point is something that's pretty severe too, is that some of the people in these new civil lawsuits against Diddy are saying that they were minors at the time of these sexual assaults. And Diddy's federal indictment doesn't list anything like that. I mean, he has his charges, but they're nothing to do with sexually assaulting someone under the age of 18. So do you think additional charges could be brought to him or someone else if they have a lot of proof to say, I was under 18 and I was sexually assaulted at this time?
Yes, but the federal government, they don't like to shoot and miss. So their indictment the indictment is like, we're going to prove that. There's always superseding indictments, right? So now they're doing investigations regarding his son's activities. What does the FBI and the federal government love more than anything ever is when they have a defendant and then in a superseding indictment, they indict your relatives, because nothing is worse than that. You're sitting in a federal jail, right? What's worse when you get a phone call and, hey, your son was indicted or your other relatives were indicted. So they're going to press wherever they can. The problem with someone like Diddy, when they raided his mansions, and I've said this various times in my different interviews, when they raided his mansion, he had 2 or 3 machine guns, AR-15s, with altered serial numbers. That's really bad because that's the type of thing that a criminal would have, a stupid criminal. But it's what even is worse is if you thought that you were so untouchable that you had these in your house after the lawsuit, after you were already heated up and everybody was talking about your malfeasance and the things that you were doing, and you still had the machine guns, what else did you have? So I believe that search is a treasure trove of videos and things that Diddy had in his house, because if he didn't have the common sense to remove the machine guns, he didn't have the common sense to scrape his hard drives and get rid of all that evidence that he was accumulating. For what reason? I don't know. Another thing is that someone around, if you're a billionaire, you should have someone around you that can tell you, hey, you know what? What you're doing, you may think is fun, but it's a federal crime. And this investigation goes back to 2008. In 2008, filling up your Lear jet and taking a bunch of prostitutes to another state to have a sex freak off may have not been that frowned upon. But post Epstein, it's human trafficking. So no longer the Learjet and the billionaire status is an excuse for filling up your plane with prostitutes and crossing a state line to have a drug-fueled orgy. Nowadays, it's illegal, and he should have had somebody in his circle telling him, "Hey, you can't do this. It's illegal. It's human trafficking, and it's not cool."
A lot of missteps on Diddy's part for sure, but talking about the evidence you were mentioning during those federal raids, I think you're right. There has to be an overwhelming amount because we saw those raids in March and he wasn't arrested until September. So that's 6 months worth of investigation diving into all this information. Is it possible that there's more that the feds are still looking through right now, combing through extra information to see what they have to really bulk up their case?
Of course. Listen, it starts off with whatever they seize at his house, and then that's going to lead to, is it a text message? Who got the text message? You know, is it a video? Who filmed the video? When was the video filmed? Is it location services? Nowadays, with every single one of my big cases involves a forensic expert, forensic evidence expert, and nowadays videos have stamps with location services that identify where it was taken. So yeah, what they seized at the raid is only the beginning. It's not the roof, it's the floor, for sure.
We've talked a lot about the prosecutors on the federal side of things, but you are a criminal defense attorney. So picking your brain here for Diddy's side of things, I mean, he's still in jail right now. Things aren't looking super great for him, but he does have a huge defense team. What do you think they're working on right now?
Listen, the defense in this case has to be, yeah, he's a freak. He would have freak offs, but he's not a criminal. And all these people were voluntary participants. And all of a sudden they're saying that, oh, I gave them drugs so that they will comply. Maybe I gave them drugs because they like drugs and they like to do drugs at orgies. It's not the first time that we've heard of people doing drugs at orgies. So the defense has to be, it can't be, this never happened. There's videos that it did. The problem is that when you're dealing with the voluminous amount of people and sex workers, that they'll easily flip and be like, no, you forced me. No, you threatened me. No, I wasn't a voluntary participant. And now I'm absolved of my own guilt, if any. And now I'm going to sue you because I'm a victim. So that's the problem that he has. And it's really, I can't fathom someone that was in his position that is worth what it was worth is going to be going out there and putting himself at risk. You know, like, I don't know, 1,000 bottles of baby oil. I mean, I've made jokes and said, since when is sex lube a crime? Since when is having sexual lubricant in your house evidence in a criminal case? But the problem is, it is evidence because it's 1,000 bottles of this baby oil and the mass productions that he was having and giving people intravenous, IVs after the orgies. It's just it plays out a pattern of what he was doing and an obsession. I really there's no doubt about it. He's a freak. And what they did was they put out that video of him attacking his ex-girlfriend, right? Successfully poisoned the jury pool, and especially in New York. So now they bring the indictment in New York where everybody knows Diddy. Everybody knows Diddy internationally, but in New York, everybody knows Diddy. He's from there. So anybody that's sitting on that jury knows about the case, seen the video. So that makes it even worse for him. You want to talk about poisoning a jury pool? That video killed him.
A lot to talk about just based on that. I liked the word you used, voluminous, talking about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil, which we've all talked about a lot. And then you brought up the jury pool that has potentially been tainted. Right now, the trial date is set for May, less than a year after Diddy was arrested. Do you think they're really going to go to trial at that time?
You know what? With a case like this, the obvious answer has to be no, because, I've done a lot of big cases, and in big cases, there's always something comes up that you need that continuance, the expert that, is not available. So the answer is probably not, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to try because their client is in custody. This is another problem. Diddy was never a gangster. Diddy grew up in a good neighborhood. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, he became a rap mogul. He started hanging out with people that were really from the hood, and he started to convince himself that, if everybody's singing about being a pimp, I'm actually a pimp. If everybody's singing about being a gangster, I'm actually a gangster. Obviously not a gangster, committing egregious errors that have led to his arrest. Now he's not a gangster. He doesn't know what it is to do time. He's sitting in a federal lockup and he's itching to get out of there. So for sure, he's pressuring his defense team. Let's get this over with. And they're probably telling him, well, listen, you're going to get your day in court. You're going to get your day in court. The federal prosecution rate, their success rate is like 97, 98%. I'm not going to tell you that they're unbeatable. They are, but your clients have to be counseled that even if you were a nobody and nobody knew who you were, and the jury came in there not knowing who you were, they still have a 97% chance, 98% chance of winning. Now you add in who you are. The fact that they gave you a key to the city, the fact that you got plastered on international media beating up your girlfriend in an egregious fashion. That video is horrific. That isn't a regular beatdown. That is a horrible, horrible beatdown. Everybody saw it. Everybody knows about it. So add that to the statistical probability that you're going to lose, and that's what you got. Now, what else can he do? Well, maybe he can cooperate. And how can he cooperate? He could rope in all the other people that were involved. Like I said, higher net worth people than him, and politicians. So if anybody out there that was involved in a freak off with Diddy should be sweating at this moment.
A lot to unpack and a lot ahead for this case, but thank you for giving us some insight, Mauricio. It was really helpful to get a better picture of the case.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
For his part, Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all the federal charges. His attorney released a statement, reading in part, quote, Sean Diddy Combs is a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, loving family man, and proven philanthropist who has spent the last 30 years building an empire, adoring his children and working to uplift the Black community. He is an imperfect person, but is not criminal. To his credit, Mr. Combs has been nothing but cooperative with the investigation. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. It remains to be seen what's next for those unnamed celebrities, but we do know where to find Diddy. He's being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn without bond and is due back in court next week. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.